Today we're going to work on a very important skill. This is going to be Izzy's first time on a tether. For living in smaller spaces, I genuinely think that tether training is something that is very important for dogs because it shows them how to calm themselves in active situations where they don't necessarily need to be involved. And we have to remember that when dogs are young, so any dog under 2 years old is supposed to be getting between 18 to 20 hours of rest. I have a short tether on the ground. We always want tethers to be low to the ground so that the dog doesn't get all tangled up. And I also offer different things for the dogs to chew. In this case, I have a couple of marrow bones. I'm gonna throw in a little soft toy there. You see that Izzy, because she's a puppy, she is wearing a harness. That way she's not putting any constant strain on her neck when she is hitting the end of that leash. This is her meal. The first thing that I have to make sure of before my puppy goes into that tether is that my dog has been fulfilled. Izzy's been out for a little bit. We went out to the courtyard to hang out for a little bit. She went potty. I carried her and did like a walk with her around the neighborhood where we were sightseeing, right? And now that it's time for me to start working the other dogs here, I need her to understand that now it's time to settle because I have to go and do other stuff. And my job is to capture behavior. Anything that is not her screaming, throwing herself at the end of that leash, I'm gonna come up and reward. I have to make sure that I am staying nearby. I don't walk out of sight when I'm first introducing this skill. My dog Riot and our OG border Honey are hanging out here just for some support and also honestly as a distraction. As you can see, neither dog really wants to interact with Izzy, and so she also needs to understand that even though there are other dogs out here, that doesn't mean that it's playtime all the time. This is part of good socialization for a dog to understand that not just because there's other dogs out here doesn't mean that we're always doing stuff. Good girl. And as I'm sitting here watching TV, moving some stuff around, this could be you making your coffee. As long as I'm in sight and nearby, every now and then, as long as Izzy's not freaking out, I come up and feed her. At first, this exercise doesn't have to be very long. For a puppy, 10 to 15 minutes is more than enough time. You see that we're getting a little bit of frustration barking here. And so she settled herself pretty quickly. So I'm gonna come up and feed her again. I never want to come up to the dog when they're barking or when they're having a little fit. I don't want them to know that that works for them. But as soon as that little tantrum stops, I come up and reward so that they understand that that behavior is what is getting them what they want. Whether it's your physical praise, your food, or even your attention. In some cases, you might have to sit next to your dog while they're still able to reach you on the tether. There are some dogs that have way more anxiety about you being further away. Izzy's doing pretty good so far, and so I'm just testing out walking around in different directions so that she also kind of builds comfort in not being able to get to me. Right here, she tried to get at me and she couldn't, but instead of continuing to fight at the end of the leash and throwing herself and screaming, she kind of went back. She gave into the leash tension. And so I'm gonna come up and reward that behavior. For me, tether training is also kind of like an efficient but lazy way to teach leash manners. If the leash is straight and the dog keeps pulling, that is kind of similar to what's happening out on a walk. If she feels tension on the leash and gives into it, that is the same expectations that we have when dogs are outside walking on a leash. A very important part of this process is me not looking like I'm in training mode all the time. I'm sitting here pretending like I'm watching TV, maybe even pulling out the PlayStation remote or the controller of my TV. And as long as she's just sitting there and being a good puppy, every now and then I'm going to come up and reward her for that. I never want the tether to be a punishment first. I want it to be something that the dog understands what their role is when we are putting them in there. So that when I do use it as a consequence for something, the dog is not just there like, man, this fucking sucks, I want to get out of here. They understand that, oh, my human actually needs me to settle in right now. And usually I start by tethering the dogs for anywhere between 3 to 4 times a day for 10 to 15 minutes and slowly building up that amount of time to about 45 minutes to an hour. I want the dogs to eventually be able to fall asleep when they are on this tether. What depends though is if they are not doing great and they get pretty anxious about you leaving the room, I might have to stay in the room for a couple of days. Once they start being more comfortable and understanding the concept, then you can start trying to walk away into your bathroom, try to go into a different room. In some cases, people can put up cameras to pay attention to what the dog is doing while they're walking in and out. My place is really not that big, so I'm able to kind of keep an eye on her wherever I'm at. But to me, this is an incredibly important skill to teach our dogs how to settle in our apartments. It can't just be a free-for-all. This way, I can transfer the skill whenever we go to a friend's house, whenever we go to a patio, and even when I'm out trying to talk to somebody while my dog is on a leash. I need them to understand that whenever their leash is anchored to something, even if that anchor is you, that just means we're hanging in for a little bit. And as long as they don't freak out, they don't have to hold a sit-stay or a down-stay the whole time. As long as they're chilling, that food is going to keep coming. As you all know, I'm all about pairing stuff that you do every day to training your dog. So think about times that you normally would want your dog to settle, like when you're cooking dinner, when you're making food, when you're welcoming people in. Those are times that you need to be practicing your tether training. Good girl. And see, it didn't take very long for her to get the hang of this game. I'm gonna try walking this way. A little bit of whining there, which is okay. I'm gonna come right back. She didn't make a fuss. What a good girl. It can become pretty unhealthy for dogs to follow you around the house all day. So I want her to realize that anytime that I leave for whatever reason, I'm always gonna come back.